The video appeared without warning, yet within hours it dominated timelines, news feeds, and discussion forums, quickly becoming one of the most talked about incidents of the day. What initially looked like just another clip from a shopping mall turned into a powerful social moment that forced thousands of viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about wealth, arrogance, and human dignity. At the center of the footage was a well-dressed, visibly wealthy man whose confident posture and dismissive tone suggested someone accustomed to authority and privilege. Opposite him stood a mother and her young son, quiet, modest, and clearly out of place in the polished, luxury-filled environment around them. According to early reports, the incident took place during peak shopping hours at an upscale mall known for high-end brands and elite clientele. The mother had entered one of the stores with her son, not to browse luxury items but to ask about affordable necessities. Witnesses later explained that her clothes were simple and worn, and her child clutched her hand nervously, sensing the tension even before the first harsh words were spoken. The wealthy man, overhearing their conversation with a store employee, turned toward them with a smirk that quickly shifted the tone of the moment. What followed shocked many who later watched the clip. In a loud, mocking voice, the man questioned why they were even there, suggesting that the store, and the mall itself, was not meant for people like them. His words were sharp, his laughter careless, echoing through the space with cruel ease. The mother initially tried to ignore him, focusing on calming her son, but the man continued, making comments about their appearance, their assumed financial status, and their perceived lack of worth in such a place. Each remark seemed designed not just to insult, but to humiliate. Bystanders could be seen in the background, some frozen in discomfort, others filming on their phones, unsure whether to intervene or simply document what was unfolding. The son's reaction became one of the most discussed elements of the video later that day. He lowered his head, pressing closer to his mother, visibly confused and hurt, while she wrapped an arm around him, her face tense but controlled. Viewers noted that despite the humiliation, she did not raise her voice or respond with anger, a detail that many later described as both heartbreaking and dignified. Within minutes of being uploaded, the video began spreading rapidly across social platforms. Influencers, journalists, and everyday users shared it with captions expressing disbelief and anger. News outlets quickly picked it up, framing the clip as a clear example of class-based discrimination in public spaces. Comment sections filled with heated debate, with many condemning the man's behavior and others questioning how such conduct could still occur so openly in modern society. The phrase, "wealth without humanity," trended alongside the clip, becoming a symbolic summary of what viewers felt they were witnessing. As the story gained traction, additional eyewitness accounts began to surface. Shoppers who had been present described the man as calm and confident throughout the confrontation, as if he truly believed his status placed him above consequences. Some reported that store staff appeared hesitant to intervene, possibly intimidated by his appearance or reputation. This detail further fueled public outrage, shifting the conversation from a single act of cruelty to a broader discussion about how power and money can silence accountability. By the end of the day, what started as a brief, cruel exchange had evolved into a national talking point. News analysts discussed the psychological impact of public humiliation, especially on children, while social commentators emphasized the responsibility of individuals and institutions to protect dignity in shared spaces. The mother and son, whose names were still unknown at this stage, had become unwilling symbols of resilience in the face of arrogance. And the man who mocked them, once just another wealthy figure passing through a mall, had unknowingly triggered a chain of events that would soon challenge his public image in ways he never expected. As the confrontation continued, witnesses later described how the atmosphere inside the store shifted from casual shopping to deep unease. The wealthy man's voice grew louder, not because anyone challenged him, but because no one did. Emboldened by the silence around him, he continued making remarks that crossed from rude into openly degrading. He questioned the woman's ability to afford anything in the store and sarcastically suggested she should be shopping somewhere more appropriate. Each sentence was delivered with a confident smile, as if he expected agreement rather than resistance. The mother stood still, listening without interruption. Those nearby noticed her hands trembling slightly as she tightened her grip on her son's shoulder. She whispered to him, attempting to reassure him, even as the words being thrown at them cut deeper with every passing second. Her body language showed clear intent to leave, but the man stepped slightly closer, blocking their path and continuing to speak. Several shoppers later admitted that this was the moment they realized the situation had gone too far, yet hesitation and shock kept most of them rooted in place. Security personnel were present at a distance, watching but not intervening. This detail became one of the most criticized aspects of the incident once it reached the public. Eyewitnesses reported that the guards exchanged glances, clearly aware of the tension, but made no move to stop the verbal abuse. Some speculated that the man's confident behavior and expensive appearance may have influenced their inaction. This perceived imbalance of power only added fuel to the growing anger online once the footage surfaced. The turning point came when a senior mall manager arrived on the scene, alerted by staff members who had finally recognized the seriousness of the situation. Unlike others, the manager did not hesitate. Upon approaching, his attention shifted immediately to the woman, and his expression changed noticeably. According to multiple accounts, he addressed her respectfully by name, asking if she was all right. This single moment altered the entire dynamic. The wealthy man, who had been speaking freely moments earlier, fell silent, clearly confused by the sudden shift in tone. As the manager spoke, it became clear that the woman was not an anonymous shopper, as many had assumed. She was identified as the widow of a former business partner who had once been instrumental in the early success of the company connected to the man now mocking her. This revelation spread quickly among those standing nearby. Conversations began to ripple through the crowd, and the man's posture shifted from relaxed confidence to visible discomfort. The authority he had assumed no longer seemed secure. Eyewitnesses described how the man attempted to laugh off the situation, claiming his comments had been misunderstood or were meant as jokes. However, his words no longer carried the same weight. The crowd, previously silent, began to murmur openly. Some shoppers voiced their disapproval aloud, while others confronted security, questioning why the situation had been allowed to escalate so far. Phones remained raised, capturing every reaction, every shift in expression, ensuring that nothing would be forgotten or denied. Later, the manager's response was calm but firm. He asked the man to step aside and offered immediate assistance to the woman and her son. This gesture, small as it seemed, was widely praised once reported by the media. It signaled a restoration of balance, showing that authority, when used correctly, could still protect those being mistreated. The woman declined attention, focusing instead on her child, but witnesses noted the relief visible on her face as the pressure finally eased. By the time the confrontation ended, the narrative had completely reversed. The wealthy man, once the loudest voice in the room, now appeared isolated, surrounded not by admiration but by judgment. The crowd's reaction reflected a collective shift from passive observation to moral awareness. What had begun as a display of unchecked privilege had transformed into a public reckoning, witnessed in real time by dozens and later by millions online. As news outlets later reported, this middle phase of the incident became critical to public understanding of the story. It highlighted not only the cruelty of one individual, but also the consequences of silence, the role of authority figures, and the power of unexpected truth. The events of those few minutes revealed how quickly social hierarchies can collapse when facts emerge, and how arrogance, once exposed, has little defense left. After the incident, the situation evolved far beyond the walls of the shopping mall and entered the wider public consciousness, where it quickly became a topic of national discussion. What many initially dismissed as a single act of arrogance soon revealed deeper questions about class, power, and accountability. As the video continued to circulate, mainstream media outlets gave it prominent coverage, replaying the footage while experts and commentators analyzed every detail. News reports framed the story not merely as an individual failure of character, but as a reflection of how social inequality often manifests in everyday interactions. Public reaction intensified with each passing hour. Social media platforms were flooded with messages condemning the businessman's behavior and expressing solidarity with the mother and her son. Hashtags calling for respect, dignity, and equal treatment began trending, turning the incident into a symbol of resistance against class-based humiliation. Many users shared personal experiences of being judged or disrespected because of their appearance or financial situation, transforming the story into a collective expression of frustration that resonated far beyond the original event. As pressure mounted, the businessman's identity was officially confirmed, and attention shifted toward his professional life. The company linked to him released an initial statement acknowledging the incident and promising a thorough internal review. However, this response was widely criticized as vague and reactive. Commentators questioned whether such an investigation would have occurred without the public outcry and viral attention. The debate soon expanded into a broader critique of corporate culture, with critics arguing that companies often act only when their public image is at risk, rather than out of genuine ethical concern. The following day brought a public apology from the man at the center of the controversy. In carefully chosen language, he described his remarks as inappropriate and expressed regret for the situation. Despite this, the apology failed to satisfy many viewers. Analysts and commentators pointed out that the statement focused more on reputational damage than on empathy for the mother and her child. The absence of a direct acknowledgement of the emotional harm caused, particularly to the child, led many to conclude that the apology was more strategic than sincere. Meanwhile, the mother and her son remained silent, avoiding interviews and public appearances. This silence, rather than weakening their position, strengthened it. Observers noted that their refusal to engage with media attention preserved their dignity and prevented the story from becoming exploitative. Psychologists and social advocates highlighted the mother's composure as a powerful example of emotional strength, emphasizing how her calm response protected her child in a moment of public humiliation. Their quiet presence became a stark contrast to the loud arrogance that had sparked the incident. As days passed, new developments emerged. Internal sources confirmed that the businessman had been temporarily removed from public-facing duties while the investigation continued. Though framed as a precautionary measure, the decision carried significant symbolic weight. It signaled that even individuals with wealth and influence could face consequences when their actions conflicted with public values. Media outlets described this step as a rare but important instance of accountability, reinforcing the idea that social pressure can lead to real-world outcomes. The incident also sparked meaningful discussions in educational, professional, and social circles. Teachers referenced the story in classrooms to discuss ethics, empathy, and responsible leadership. Social organizations used it as an example in campaigns against discrimination and bullying, particularly focusing on the lasting psychological effects such experiences can have on children. The story became a reference point for conversations about how societies define success and worth, challenging the assumption that money equates to moral authority. Over time, even as headlines moved on, the impact of the event lingered. The video continued to resurface in discussions about social behavior, reminding audiences that moments of cruelty, when captured and shared, can have lasting consequences. Many reflected on how quickly roles had reversed. A man who believed his status placed him above others found himself judged by millions, while a woman who appeared powerless became a symbol of grace under pressure. In the end, the story transcended its origins as a viral clip. It became a broader lesson about humanity, humility, and the responsibility that comes with privilege. It demonstrated that respect is not something granted by wealth, but something earned through behavior. Most importantly, it showed that a single moment of arrogance can unravel years of carefully built reputation, while a moment of quiet dignity can inspire an entire society to reflect on its values.